Hello, everybody. Welcome, and I'm excited to share what I hope is going to be some really useful information that will enhance your marriage or your partnership. I wanted to start off by saying that as we go through these slides, I also have some notes that I have written to kind of enhance the slideshow. So if you see me kind of looking down or looks like I'm reading something, it's because I am. And I want to just make sure that you get a lot of great information. So um, also wanted to let you know that this information that I'm sharing with you is informed by Dr. John Gottman, and he is a leading research scientist on marriage and family. And he is a professor, emeritus professor of psychology at the University of Washington. He and his wife, Julie, have partnered together and are directors of the Relationship Research Institute and co-founders of the Gottman Institute. Some of you have heard of him. I consider John Gottman to be the gold standard when it comes to marriage therapy. I use it in my own practice. I use him. I want to kind of let you know that this book called The Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work is fabulous. If anyone's interested in purchasing that, I would definitely recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. I think it's about, I don't know, uh, $16 or so, but it's a fabulous, fabulous resource for marriages. Okay, so we're going to launch in. And as I said, Dr. John Gottman is a revered marriage expert. He's done extensive research in the field of marriage. And one of his most helpful findings is what separates successful marriages to ones that fail. And he's done research, years. We're talking about 30 years of research. They actually have what they call the Love Lab at their marriage institute, where couples can come and hang out for a couple of weeks. They're hooked up to all kinds of monitors that monitor heart rate and heartbeat and blood pressure. And they are kind of in fish bowls. And then the therapists are able to watch and see how these couples interact. So I like using Dr. Gottman because it's empirically proven, most of his research is. And what he found, what separates successful marriages to ones that fail? The answer, those that spend an extra 5 hours per week investing in their spouse tend to enjoy a more healthy marriage. He calls this the 5 hours of magic. So, before we get into the 5 hours of magic and we go through this, I want to ask what things are most important to you? Where and in whom do you invest your time? On average, adults spend about 8 hours per day at work. So 1/3 of your life is spent working. The average adult spends 4.8 hours per day on their phone. And the average couple generally spends 2 to 2.5 hours per day together. Isn't that interesting? So I want you to kind of think about your lives and um, are you content with this time allocation? Is there anything that you might want to change? And were you surprised just now to see that the least amount of time is spent on coupling? Again, is that something you might want to change? That's what we're going to be launching into today. 5 hours of magic. So why strong? I want to just say a word about kids. And I can't say enough about kids because in my practice, I see the spectrum. I see everyone from kids to adults. And in my work with kids, I'm just struck over and over again at how well children do when parents are together, united, and have a strong relationship. What we know is that children who live in homes with committed and loving parents have better outcomes later in life. And when parents demonstrate love and respect for each other, it creates a secure and stable environment for children, fostering their emotional and social growth. The positive example of healthy relationships can have lasting effects on a child's future relationships. So some of you may have come from divorced homes. That was your childhood. and you're saying to yourself, I don't want to do that to my children. I know what that looks like. We can also see at times when divorce is perpetuated throughout the generations because these kids don't have a really good role models when they're young to know how to do it when they get older. So again, it's very important for children to feel like they have stability in their home. And the architects of a home and a family are who? I hope you're saying the parents because that's true. The architects of the home are the parents. And when that is a strong union, it trickles down to those kids. When it's not a strong union, it trickles down to those kids. Can you see the pattern? A couple of statistics here. Children with married co-resident parents have increased likelihood of completing higher education, improved mental and physical health, and reduced risk of engaging in risky behaviors like drug use or early sexual activity. They are less likely to experience mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Having two parents in the household leads to increased financial stability. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? Leading to better access to children's educational and healthcare needs. Children with married co-resident parents may have higher earning potential in adulthood. Again, because they had those benefits. If you really want to make more money, get married because it's proven that you make more money as a couple when you have a legal marital status. I also want to point out that when kids have parents who are united and show love towards each other, they get to be kids. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to give you an example. I am working right now with a 14-year-old girl. Her parents are constantly fighting. It's a really contentious marriage, and there's a lot of dysfunction in the home. When her parents start fighting, she's the oldest of three kids. She takes her two little siblings and they go down into the basement and she entertains them and she helps them feel distracted so that they don't have to worry about the fighting upstairs. When I was working with her, I said to her, I asked her the question, now, when you take those siblings down the stairs to the basement, I want you to tell me, what did you feel like? What were you feeling? And she looked at me in all seriousness and she said, like their mom. That struck me. So this role, this 14-year-old girl is assuming the role of a parent. And that's what we call in the clinical world parentified. So if you were one of those kids that grew up having to feel like a parent to your siblings, you were parentified. The other thing that this girl feels like when I talk to her is she feels like a referee at times and a marriage therapist because what she does when she settles her little siblings, she'll often go back up those stairs and she will try to intervene and convince her parents to stop fighting. So my point is, she really doesn't get to be a kid. And when kids don't get to be kids, their schoolwork suffers, their social life suffers with their peers. There's always this feeling of, I had to grow up too fast. So I don't want to belabor that, but I think that's really important to think about as we launch into these 5 steps that are going to enhance your marriage. I love this quote by John Wooden. The best thing a father can do for his children is love their mother. And the best thing a mother can do for her children is love their father. That's by John Wooden. Amen to that. So, okay, what are the 5 hours of magic? I know you're on the edge of your seats. The first one is partings and departures, 2 minutes per day. Spend 2 minutes per day warmly and intentionally departing from your spouse, from work, the gym, or social activity. This can include a brief description of the forthcoming appointments or activities that you will encounter during your day. Take a moment to do this without rushing. And as you depart, let your spouse know that they are an important part of your day. This is 2 minutes per weekday, 10 minutes per week. All right, so I want you to think about your typical morning routine. What does it look like? Maybe it looks like this: grabbing your morning coffee, making breakfast. Maybe that's 10 to 20 minutes. Showering, getting dressed, basic hygiene, maybe 30 to 60 minutes. Scrolling through your phone, maybe that's 10 minutes. Packing lunches, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Where does your spouse or partner come in? Is there any contact? I want you to just think about that for a minute. When you are doing your morning routine, where does your spouse come in? Is there spousal contact? Is there coupling happening? So this is 2 minutes. We're talking 2 minutes. I'm working with a couple right now, and I want you to know that they're really not that connected. They just aren't really demonstrative. They kind of live parallel lives. And I was giving them this assignment when, after a session, and said, we're going to be working on just step one right here, partings and departures, 2 minutes per day. When they came back after just focusing on that, their wife looked at me and she said, when we spent just 2 minutes doing this in the morning, I felt really confident that John would be thinking about me throughout his day. And then she looked at him and she said, were you? And he said, yeah, I was. You were on my radar. So I think that that is a really exciting, very hopeful thing to think about. We're investing 2 minutes in the morning. Okay. Next, greetings and arrivals, 20 minutes per day. So at some point shortly after your return from work or daily activity, you're going to be spending 20 minutes debriefing about the events of the day. Well, what does this look like? So each spouse takes about 10 minutes of this time to share a high or low point of the day. This is time to reconnect after spending the majority of your day in separate worlds. 20 minutes per weekday is 1 hour and 40 minutes per week. Now, let's talk about what this might look like. It looks like, hi, hon, how was your day? As soon as you both get home, maybe he shares about a conversation he had with his boss that didn't go so well. And you're able to say, oh, I'm so sorry. What can I do to support you? Maybe she shares about a lunch meeting where she saw an old acquaintance of hers and she talks about that for a minute. Maybe they touch base about whether the yard service arrived during the day, or he confirms that he was able to drop by the dry cleaners and pick up the dry cleaning. Maybe they share about a text they got from the school about one of their children, right? So this is connecting once again, just a connection, 20 minutes per day. So remember the departing in the morning? This is part 2. This is the greeting and the arrival. This is reporting back, right? This morning we shared, this is going to be happening to us, and now we're reporting back and we're sharing about it. Let me point out something really alarming. 80% of affairs start in the workplace. That's across the board. And 60% of employees have had at least one workplace romance. So what are we talking about here? We are talking about, it's just imperative to be intentional about one another during your day with departures and arrivals. It keeps both of you again on each other's radars. If you have connected in the morning, you're thinking about each other during the day, and you're connecting when you get home, that is the beginning of a very healthy union. Okay, Number three,
Hey,
physical.
Donna, we've got a
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
Someone said, what if you're remarried with children from other marriages? The exes are very high conflict, but both exes don't follow our standards as a family. If the current marriage is good, but the previous marriages were bad, how does this affect the kids?
Well, that's a really good, I love the question. Whoever asked that, thank you for the question. And what I think I'm hearing it correctly. So what if you are remarried and it's a good union, but you have this contention going on with the other spouses, with the former spouses? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I think so. And then at
Okay.
the bottom they said, no, yeah, they said, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay. So I run across this all the time. I can't stress enough, we cannot control other people. We can't fix them. We can't change them. We certainly can't manipulate them in any way. The only people we can change, fix, or control, the only person we can do that for is self, right? So you you were married before. This was contentious, right? So now you're in a healthy union. Good for you. The best thing you can do for the children in your home is to role model a healthy union. This other stuff that's going on the outside, you have no control over. You can't change it, but you can make it a safe place for those children when they're with you. When they are in your home, is it stable? Are you united with your spouse? Even if it's a step spouse, that matters because you are role modeling for that child what a healthy union can look like. The obvious about that I want to throw out as well is, of course, please do not badmouth the former spouse. Make sure that you are upbeat about the relationships. And when the kids come back and say, oh my gosh, it's so horrible over there, maybe you go back to the courts and see if something can change. But what you can control is what's happening in your home with your current union. I don't know if that was too simple of an answer. I hope that was helpful.
Awesome, thank you. And then
Can
someone
can we move
just,
on?
yeah, someone made a comment that where you were talking about connecting with your spouse. They said, my husband gets off work after me and he calls me when he's leaving work and we talk for about 10 minutes on the phone so we can kind of debrief together. I love it so much.
I love that. Oh, thank you for that. That's a wonderful comment. Yeah, because honestly, who does come home when your spouse comes home? I mean, our schedules are so erratic right now, the way things are. And so I love that you are being, again, did you hear the intentional movement in that statement? I am intentionally connecting, even if it's by phone, even if we're FaceTiming, even if we're on a work trip and we're in 5 states away, we are connecting because the message we're giving each other is what? You are my priority. Again, the best thing a father can do for his children is love their mother. The best thing a mother can do for her children is love their father. And when that is tight, everybody's happy, even pets. Some of you don't have children in the home, you have your dogs. They sense it, right? So this matters.
Okay, one more
Okay.
comment. One more comment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Please. Love it.
and I'd love to hear your feedback on this. Someone said, I work from home and my husband doesn't ask about my day, and I have built up some resentment. I just need to start sharing my day and stop waiting for him to ask.
Heather, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so they said, I work from home and my husband doesn't ask about my day, and I have built up
Mhm.
some resentment. I just need
Mhm.
to start sharing my day and stop waiting for him to ask.
Absolutely. That is so in sync with what we were just saying. You cannot control your husband, right? But you can control how you respond to your husband. So what we don't want to see as a victim, and I love where this person is going in this comment. I am not going to be a victim. I'm not going to just sit there and pout and wait for him to do what I want him to do. I am going to take the lead because it matters to me. Yes, start sharing your day. and then ask him about his and see what happens. I love that. Very proactive. Okay, can we move on to three? Physical affection, 5 minutes per day. This is spending 5 minutes per day, not necessarily in one setting, intentionally touching, hugging, kissing, and physically interacting with one another. This is important because the more familiar and routine you become with your spouse, the less time you take to physically be together. I'm going to repeat that bullet because I think it's really key. This is important because the more familiar and routine you become with your spouse, the less time you take to physically be together. So if you ask couples, hey, do you spend time together? Oh, yeah, we make dinner all the time together. Or, yeah, we're, rounding up the kids. They think they're together all the time. But this is about doing something physical. These 5 minutes will likely be the easiest of this list to do with each other and will likely enhance your sex life. 5 minutes every day is 35 minutes per week. All right, here's a question. What separates a spouse from a roommate? If you look at the first two steps that we've been talking about, the departings and the uniting, those could have pertained to just really great roommates, right? I mean, I think roommates might do that. What separates you from being a roommate is the intimacy. That is what is so key. And I'm really surprised. I I can't tell you how many times I hear many couples have said, they come to therapy and they say, we really get along and we really like each other and we even love each other, but we feel like we're roommates. And when we start talking, this part right here, this physical affection has kind of gone by the wayside. What does this look like? It could be hugging in the hallway, coming up and planting a kiss on the cheek of your spouse while you're making dinner together. Um, it, you know what it looks like. Start doing it. Do more of it because this is really what separates you from just being partners. This makes you marriage um, marriage partners. It makes you dating partners. When you are able to have the physical interaction with one another, it changes everything. Okay, so this is something I hear often, and I wonder if you're going to relate. Sometimes I hear, well, if I'm sitting on the couch next to my spouse and I just innocently put my hand on his shoulder or her shoulder, or maybe I touch her upper thigh, guess what? That spouse thinks, oh, good, time for sex. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this doesn't lead to sex. This is just the nuances of physicality during the day. But it will enhance your sex life if this is something that you get in the habit of doing. Um, okay.
Hey, we've got another
That
question.
yes.
They said, how do we accomplish physical affection when one person in the relationship needs touch and affection, but the other spouse's love language is the opposite of touch and affection? And they put in quotations, I don't want to be touched. I've got kids touching me all day. They're hanging all over me all day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Maybe you find out what is their love language and you do a little compromising. You say, okay, if your love language is words of affirmation, I will do more of that if you will allow me to do more of the touching, the hugging, the kissing. Look at the picture in the corner here. Do you see that couple? That to me, that just shows, hey, we're connected. There's something here, right? They look thrilled with each other. Now, if you're not a touchy-feely person, maybe you can compromise. Maybe you can come up with, okay, this is what I am allowed to do with my spouse that's not a touchy-feely person. Maybe it's Maybe it's a touch on the shoulder. Maybe it's just a warm hug or a side hug. But it's worth, what I want to stress is it's worth having a very honest conversation with one another about what works and what doesn't work. And I like the question because obviously this person knows, hey, this is kind of how we are as a couple. And there's a little bit more room to explore and figure out what will work.
Okay, and then we have
Other
another
questions?
one that says,
Yeah, yeah.
what is a good starting point in trying to connect physically when you haven't in a long time? Even just holding hands or hugging can feel awkward sometimes.
hmm hmm I appreciate that question as well, and I hear that a lot. Like, ooh, how do we get back to this? You experiment. You start small. You again converse. You have a conversation and say, what's going to work? Maybe holding hands is really all you're going to do for the moment. Maybe just a quick squeeze. Maybe you don't even hold it for very long. Sometimes it might even be just looking into each other's eyes, just being able to connect that way. Maybe just being in the same space. Maybe all we're doing for a while is just sitting next to each other on a couch or allowing each other to, you know, maybe hold hands when we're in the car. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, we have a couple comments. The first one
Yeah.
was just kind of reiterating what you said. My husband has a really low sex drive because of health issues, so I have to be very intentional about making sure that we hug daily and we're intimate in that way, which
hmm
reiterates it. And someone else said, we decided at one point that we just needed to talk nicely to each other. That fixed everything.
Oh, I love that. I love both of those.
And then someone just said, this is cute. Someone just said, my spouse and I have a secret handshake.
I love it. Maybe you have a secret wink or, but what I'm hearing, there's a common denominator in every one of these comments that I really want to commend you on. That is, we are communicating about it. We are aware, right? It matters enough to us. It matters enough to me that I recognize that my spouse has some physical issues right now and has a low sex drive. And we're having conversations about it, right? It's not like I'm rejecting him and saying, well, he can't perform, so I'm out of here. It's, oh, we're having a conversation about this. We are trying to find solutions. This is something that's important to us. Um, and this, the secret handshake, or, what we're doing right now is we're being kinder to each other in our language. Wow. Love that. I
And then
think that's phenomenal.
one more, which goes back to a question earlier. They're just giving it something that they do for the person that is with a spouse who feels overtouched by the kids. They said
Yeah.
sometimes the intimacy that works for us is just touching each other's faces. This helps when I'm overstimulated from the children touching me, and it is an
Mhm.
intimate connection just for me and my partner.
Wow. Great solution. Great resolution on that. And they've had a conversation about, hey, this works for me. A touch on the face. That's what I need. That works for me. That tells me I love you. That tells me I'm attracted to you. Wow. That is so great. Yeah, this is a big one. Again, remember, this is what separates you from just being roommates. And I hope you're all hearing in the comments and the questions that there's not one solution for everybody that works. Everybody, this is a tailor-made, we know ourselves well enough that we know what's going to work and not work for us. Maybe the neighbors do it differently, right? Maybe your sister does it differently with her spouse, or your brother does it differently, but that doesn't matter. What works for you and what are you communicating about that is going to drive you to have that physical, intentionally physical connection? So important. Okay, number 4. We have admiration, affirmation, and compliments, 5 minutes per day. Now it's time to spread some love with words of affirmation. Now, so you're going to be making mention about something you admire about your spouse or something they did. Remember, it takes 5 positive affirmations to counteract 1 negative interaction. Think of this category as your emotional bank account. Each time you find something enjoyable or affirming about your spouse, make a deposit. Okay, so those of you who know what works as far as intimate touch probably also know what works with words of affirmation and compliments. I know that I'm working with a couple right now where it just makes her whole day if after eating dinner, her husband says to her, "Honey, you're such a great cook." Wow. It just does everything for her. She says, "I have to cook most of the time, every day for the rest of my life. My husband is not a cook. It's kind of the thing that's fallen on me." And she said, "The thing that helps me keep going is when he acknowledges, wow, you are such a good cook." That's fabulous. Remember, it takes 5 positive affirmations to counteract 1 negative interaction. So let's talk about how this might look. So perhaps your spouse is doing something that drives you crazy, or you want to have a conversation about something that you'd like to tweak in the marriage. I kind of like to introduce this idea of maybe the sandwich approach. So maybe you're going to throw out 3 wonderful things, very sincere, by the way. We're not just throwing out anything. This is really heartfelt, positive talk about your spouse. You maybe throw out 2 or 3 things that you really love about your spouse. Boy, I sure appreciated it today when you took time to throw the laundry in the dryer. I thought that was amazing. And thank you so much for packing the lunches for the kids. And I also noticed that you took a minute to call my mom on her birthday. I thought that was the most wonderful thing you ever could have done. I wonder if I can see more of XYZ, right? Wonder if I could see more of you're agreeing to take out the trash, or I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss right now, but and then after mentioning that, you're going to follow up with, boy, I sure love the way you talked to our child this morning. It was so endearing to hear you use that language. And I sure appreciate the fact that, you make sure the car is nice and warm for me when I go out in the morning to get in the car to drive to work. So did you notice what I just did? I did 3 positives, kind of threw in I would sure love, and then 2 other positives. Again, this is your emotional bank account. Each time you find something enjoyable or affirming about your spouse, you're going to make a deposit. Any comments or questions about that one?
Yeah, someone said it could have been a very bad day, but when my wife tells me slash compliments me even for an insignificant thing I do at home or for our family, that boosts my confidence and it changes my day instantly. Men can confirm this, I guess.
Yeah. I want to think of each one of us with a self-esteem bucket. I tell this to my clients all the time. We all have these self-esteem buckets. And the thing about those buckets is they have big holes in them. It's not like you fill up a self-esteem bucket and you're good for the week or you're good for the day. The self-esteem bucket has a hole, and you can hear 5 positive things in the morning and then go to work and get, you know, yelled at by a coworker or a boss, heaven forbid, right? And all of a sudden it drains out just as quickly as it was in. And so I love that this husband is able to say, yeah, when my wife takes time to say something to me, boy, that goes a long way with me. Perhaps it doesn't run out quite as quickly, right? This is like your bank account having that extra reserve. and you can spend and spend and spend, but if you still have this nice little reserve in the bottom of that bank account, you're never going to be completely empty because all of us are fragile. I don't care who it is or what their lives are like, we are all very, very fragile.
Okay, and someone wrote, I write my husband a love note every single day during the week on Post-its. He sees them when he gets home from work. Even on our worst days, I at least write, I love you.
Ooh, I want to ask that sharer, why do you do it even on the worst days? Because that's huge. Anybody want to, is that person willing to share? Even on the worst days you do it? That's amazing.
I am muted. Should I answer?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. Yes.
Hi.
Hey. So, yes, even on my worst days, because I at least still want him to know I love him, because there are some days that are challenging, but I do it every single day.
Okay. We could stop right there. And I think you've got that. That's really amazing. Good for you. Again, it goes back to the self-esteem bucket. Even on the worst day, that's the day that you do need to do it, if ever, right? Because you are fragile. So good for you. Good for you. Hopefully, you guys are all taking notes. I'm taking some. This is awesome.
That's what I was gonna say is this workshop's been really nice because everyone's sharing what they do that works, and I think it's giving
Okay.
a lot of people ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Okay,
it's
another comment was, I see a huge difference in my husband's mood when I compliment him and show appreciation. He is returning, he in return is better at thanking and complimenting me and on things I feel I go unseen, like packing lunches for the kids, etc.
well, noticing the small, simple things that are working in your marriage and noticing it and then saying something to your spouse about it. That is fabulous.
Yep. And then on a different note, separate from what you're talking about, someone
Yeah.
messaged me on here if you about the benefit. So just a reminder, if you guys want to see Donna, it would just be through your EAP. So it would be through your company's EAP benefit. And you can message me directly on email and I can look and see if you have our benefit. So just on the email that I sent you for this, the person that asked that. Okay, you're good, Donna.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other comments about this? I think this is really um, a key step, the admiration, affirmation, and compliments. Again, we're talking 5 minutes per day. That is 35 minutes per week. Okay, are you ready for number 5? I know you are all in suspense. Weekly dates, 2 hours per week. Okay, dating is the time that you and your spouse leave the confines of the home and live life together. Dates do not have to be dinner and a movie. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Dates do not have to be dinner and a movie, nor talking dates. Try having dates without sitting face to face with each other for the entire evening. This can involve a movie, putt-putt golf, serving dinner at the homeless shelter, or another activity that is not routine. Are you getting some ideas? Right? This can involve other things besides dinner and a movie. Maybe we're doing a service project. Maybe we're going for a hike. Um, Dates are usually, this is a big note, dates are usually the first activity to be deleted in a marriage. A big reason is assuming that time spent together at home negates the need for an intentional date. I'm going to get back to that in a second, so hang on to that one. Your relationship was never built by staying home. You went out, found interesting activities to do together, and connected on multiple levels by engaging intentionally with one another. All right. So I often hear, hey, we put the kids to bed on a Friday night, we get takeout, and we sit there and we watch a movie. Does that count? And my answer is no. Now, if it's all you can do, do it. But I want you to think about something about that scenario. I want you to just think about the first few moments when you met, when you really fell in love. When did it happen? Why did it happen? And then from there, what did you do about it? So maybe it was you had this glance across the room and you just made eye contact, and it was the sexiest thing that had ever happened to you. Maybe you were hoping you would get that magic text and it happened, right? Maybe it was, I don't know, you went for a walk and you were walking your dog, and he was walking his dog, and you started laughing and sharing with each other about your dogs. You were actually doing something that created movement and excitement and stimulation. You got excited about each other. And I had just a couple just very recently say to me, um, boy, I just lost my screen.
I'll be right there, Donna.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. We're still here. Don't leave us. Yeah, there we are. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. So, I had this couple just very recently tell me about about what they did when they were dating and how it was so exciting, it was so stimulating, it was so refreshing. And then they said to me, we've been married 16 years and we really wish we could go back to that exciting time together. And you know what I said to them? You can. You absolutely can do that. This is how it looks. It's again, we're being intentional. We're doing something that is putting effort into the relationship. So we're getting dressed up and we're anticipating throughout the week. And then we're going out to the car and he's opening the door for me. And then we go and maybe we enjoy a good meal and then we go do something really fun. We go out on the town and we look in the windows of the different shops and we talk about fun things that we want to do together. I mean, this is the magic of your marriage, and don't let that go away. In fact, that is probably the biggest thing you can do is a weekly date. Um, this is what you're saying to each other. We are investing time, money, effort, and creativity in one another. That's really what we're doing here when we're doing this 2 hours per week date. So make it a point to protect your date night at all costs. 2 hours per week equals big, big dividends. All right. Any comments, questions on that one?
Yeah, so we had somebody say they struggle with ideas for dates, and there was people that everyone just supported them, listed all the date ideas, which was fun.
Love it. Yeah,
Um,
I think there are some books that are actually called like 101 Dates. There are many things. If you just want to Google dating ideas, you're going to find a slew of ideas.
and then someone said, "This is one I struggle with. My wife wants more dates, and I neglect planning dates since, unlike the 2.5 hours per day statistic on average, we spend pretty much all of our free time together, mostly going to the park, walking the dog, or sitting on the couch watching TV or playing games."
Mm. Okay, so what you're saying is you're always together? Is that what I'm hearing in that
Yeah, like
comment?
they're always they do, he doesn't or they I don't know doesn't plan dates because they feel like they're together all the time.
Well, that's the trap. I just want to point that out. It's a trap. So we don't need to go on a date because we're always together. Why would we say still go on a date? I mean, we would say it because it's different. It is not the routine, right? So I hope I'm hearing the question right. And maybe you just say we don't need to date, and that's going to work for us. But I would say, even if you're together 24/7, go out and do something that is off the beaten path that you're not always doing, right? Make it exciting, make it non routine, make it something that really gets your juices going. Because what we find, again, where it says no, that fourth bullet down, dates are usually the first activity to be deleted in a marriage. A reason is assuming the time spent together at home negates the need for an intentional date. So that I love that question because that's really what that bullet speaks to. Maybe mix it up, and even if you're together all the time, you're still going to do something really special once a week that feels completely just absolutely fabulous.
Okay, some ideas that came in. Someone said that their and their partner used to they would camp out in different rooms of their apartment just to make it fun.
Oh, I love that.
Someone said,
Love that.
I'm taking my wife rock climbing tonight. It's expensive, but she loves it and it's important for her mental health.
Okay, and I'm going to say something about that. I love that. It's expensive, but hey, how expensive is a divorce? So when you think about it, spend some money on each other. It's it's an investment. It's the best thing you can do for each other, for your children, right? When there's unity in the home, everything else works out. Especially if you are parents. Those kids know it, they feel it, they benefit from it all the time.
Someone said, we have gym dates and we hit on each other like we aren't already married. Gives me a girl crush, butterflies every time.
I love that. Well, see a lot of couples that do gym dates, and it's kind of fun to see each other in, different clothes and, flexing muscles and listening to some great music. I think it's great. There are lots of opportunities right now to find ways to be together and do things that are exciting, fun, and sexy.
And then someone said, a fun idea is to get some of those date night card packs that are
Uh-huh.
specific for dates.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then someone asked if they could share a link because they have an idea for a game date night. And yes, you could share links, I think, in the chat.
Absolutely. Yeah. Please do share with us.
Someone
I
said,
love,
I know
yeah, go ahead.
this has been a good chat, guys. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Someone said, question, if weekly feels like a struggle, is there value in a larger date once a month equaling close to the 5 to 8 hours a month that weekly dates would do?
That's a great question. I'm asked that at times, and I really want to stick with a weekly date. Um, if you can, I'll tell you why. Because if you say we're gonna do one thing a month and it's 5 hours, it's just gonna remember that self-esteem bucket with the hole. Your marriage bucket has a hole too. And I don't know if 5 hours a month would compensate for 2 hours a week. Does that make sense? So I really want you to think about that. If you can't do it and you want to do a 5 hour a month, that is better than nothing. In fact, it could be fabulous. But there's a reason why John Gottman, who is the leading expert, he is world renowned, and his wife, Julie, have weekly dates as the fifth step in this process because they have the research to back it up. So again, each of you is unique. Your coupling is unique. I don't want you to feel like this is it's just set in stone. Use your creativity if needed. But I do always go back to the research, and this is empirically proven to help marriages. This weekly date, 2 hours per week.
Okay, and then someone said, what about a spouse that really struggles with transitioning to personal life versus work life?
Oh, can't loosen up, right? I'm so tense and it's hard for me to unwind. Um, I don't know. Maybe your 2 hours looks like going for a walk, just going outside and walking together and just decompressing a little bit. Because maybe it is going to be a little overwhelming to think of going into a restaurant and being around all the stimulation and or playing putt golf, or maybe you're just going to do something gentle, right? To just decompress. But you're intentionally out of the home, you're doing it together, and message you're giving one another is, again, you are my number one priority.
Okay, and then someone said, my husband has PTSD, and they put in parentheses 21 years retired military. So I'm going to need to be creative. Any ideas from the group? So if you have any ideas or experience with that, send them in the chat, please. Or if you have any either, Donna.
Yeah, PTSD is a tough one. Trauma is tough. Again, maybe we're going to look at some activities that are decompressing, not high stimulation. Um, again, just being so mindful. The last thing we want to do is have this date night be an added stressor. So I love that this spouse is so aware of her spouse with PTSD. I love that. And it's so mindful about it. Um, let's make sure that, yeah, that you take that into consideration. If that spouse has a therapist, maybe get some ideas from the therapist of what would feel calming, or just ask the spouse, if you were to picture going out 2 nights a week or 2 hours on Friday night and it would work for you, what would that look like? What would be the most calming thing for you? Maybe we're going to go walk down to the stream and we're just going to listen to the water, right? Maybe we're just going to sit on a park bench and just people observe or feed the ducks or look at the birds.
And with that, the person that sent that, if you ever benefit, which you have, there's a good chance you do since you're in this workshop. We have therapists that specialize with any type of military or first responders that are previous military or first responders or currently still are. And even if your spouse didn't want to come to therapy, you could always do a Zoom session with one of those therapists specifically. And because they lived in that world and they understand, they might be able to give you, tons of ideas.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can use that resource.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Heather just said. We have some awesome former first responders that are now therapists that work with that work at Blomquist Hale, and um, that's all they see, and they really are such a good resource for that population. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they see spouses all the time. So it's
Hmm.
totally, yep. Okay, and then someone said, when they're going on dates, are we only going with the spouse or are we occasionally going on couples dates and whatever else like when we are dating? So does it count if they're going on couples dates?
That's a great question, and I don't have a problem with that as long as it's not every time. Maybe once a month you decide that you're going to couple with another couple. But again, your marriage. If you feel like this is your time and you relish just looking in each other's eyes and feeling like I am exclusively yours, I wouldn't invite another couple into that experience. Maybe a different night of the week you can do that, or maybe just once a month. But again, the goal of this is to enrich your marriage. Um, there's always a risk. I mean, I've heard of stories where, yeah, we went on these couples dates and then I fell in love with the other one's spouse. And so I don't know. I mean, you know your marriage and you know what you need. And so just really factor that in before making that decision.
Okay, and then we have a lot of people sending suggestions like creative, cheap date night ideas
Oh,
that don't
good.
even necessarily cost anything. So if you asked for suggestions or because there's been a few people that have done that now, scroll through the chat because there's quite a few. There's a lot on there, which is awesome.
I love it.
Okay.
What a good interactive group we've got, Heather.
I know this has been great, guys. For real.
Yeah,
I really like this.
super fun.
Okay, sorry, I'm just going through these. There's a lot. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. All right, you can go ahead and keep going, Donna, if you have any more,
Okay.
and I'll keep reading
Yeah,
through and talk next
I'm
time.
just going to kind of wrap up by saying that these 5 hours of magic were present during your dating relationship and you didn't have to think about doing them. So the good news is you already know how to do this because you did it in the beginning. The bad news, I don't even know if I want to call it bad news. I'm just going to say the interesting news is you're going to need to work on it. I would be very interested, just kind of taking inventory here. How many of you have been listening to this and hopefully have been thinking, you know, I want to start incorporating one of those or two of those or all five of those. I think that would work. I think that would enhance our marriage. I would be thrilled if that happened. Take the time to invest in your marriage in these 5 hours per week, and you will reap the rewards. So, as a quick review, here they are: partings and departures, 2 minutes per day; greetings and arrivals, 20 minutes per day; physical affection, 5 minutes per day; admiration, affirmation, and compliments, 5 minutes per day. I love the discussion we got on that. The sticky notes, the complimenting each other, that just goes so far. And then weekly dates, 2 hours per week. And if you add up the math, that is 5 hours, just 5 hours a week to enhance your marriage. I've loved the chat. I've loved the comments and questions and anything else that anybody wants to throw out there as we wrap up?
So we've got, I know we're out of time, so if you have to leave, we will send the recording and the PowerPoint in PDF form to your email later this week. Someone asked if you can share the chat, and I can't figure out how to do that. So I'm sorry, I don't know if that's an option. If you know, put it in the chat. I can't figure out how to
Let
save
us
the
know.
chat. Yeah, so sorry, guys. But I did have a question come in earlier. So they said,
Yeah.
my sex drive disappeared about a decade ago when I went through physical medical trauma. My husband and I have a perfect marriage otherwise. We are extremely close, date weekly, and snuggle all the time. When I hear things at these webinars and in the media that if you're not having sex, you are only roommates, I feel sick to my stomach. We still kiss, we still get far, and we are intentional, but are we doomed?
No, no. Oh, I'm so happy this question is coming up. Can I just say that the biggest sex, the most important sex organ in your body is not between your legs, it is between your ears. You absolutely are not doomed in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to share something. I'm going to share something I just heard 2 weeks ago in a couples therapy session. And I love the courage of this particular person who reached out with the question because this comes up. This couple, they were saying that this is kind of their story, right? They just don't really have a big sex drive. And, but they are close and they love to be together. And we were talking about, you know, what turns you on with each other and makes you maybe have some sexual feelings for one another. And the wife said this. She said, you know, it's interesting to me. When I come home and I pull up in the driveway and I have groceries in the back of that car and he runs out and helps me carry them in, that to me is more sexually attractive than seeing him in a Speedo swimsuit. She said, that for me is foreplay. That that does something for me and that gets me so in love with this man. Now, did you hear anything sexual about bringing groceries in from the trunk of the car? No. There are so many ways to be sexually turned on as a couple without it being intercourse or even foreplay. It is those types of things that turn each other on. It's being available to one another. It's taking time to listen and look in somebody's eyes, look in your spouse's eyes and say, I hear you. It's following up with, oh, I love you so much, honey. Thanks for sharing that. That is sexual. So I hope I'm making myself clear. Yes, you are not doomed. And yes, there's nothing but hope for your marriage. Don't be fooled that the sex act is the main ingredient, the only thing that defines a good marriage. If you have it, fabulous. If it's not so strong, that's okay. Again, The sex organ that is the most important is between your ears, and that is your brain. How do you feel about each other? How do you communicate? And how intentional are you with one another? That's what matters.
Hi, I'd like to share.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to share some gratitude for you, Miss Donna Hill, and Heather. My therapist, he sent this over to me, and I signed up for this webinar and another one. But this was really, really helpful. I've read a lot of books. I am signed up for the Gottman Institute, but just this type of reminder, and then it's so encouraging in the chat with all of the couples that are here working on their marriages too. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this time. Even though I'm working, I was listening on my phone, but thank you all for doing this to just encourage us in our marriages. It was extremely helpful and gave me some, fun reminders. And I hadn't really thought about the date part. I know we're missing it in my marriage, but it's something I'm going to be more intentional about, even if we're just going out to sit, like some people said in the chat, just sit at a bench. We used to walk to the mailboxes. We're a little older, but it's the
Hey,
little things that make a big difference. Again, I wanted to say thank you, Ms. Donna Hill, and thank you, Heather, for hosting this webinar today.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
That was so sweet. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, that was just awesome.
And
Very rewarding.
and on that note, does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, someone sent a question, and thank you again for sharing that. That really was sweet. I mean that.
Yeah.
Someone said,
That
"What are
that
some?"
makes Heather, I just want to share something really quickly on that wonderful comment that was just shared and the gratitude. It makes me want to keep being a therapist. So thank you. Makes
Yeah,
being a therapist very rewarding.
this was great. So someone said, "What are some ways?" Sorry, someone just went away. What are some ways to get my mind ready, calm, and be grounded enough to be present for the time for these? Like, how do they get ready for it and present with it?
For the all 5 steps or for the date night,
I don't know. I think it's probably just, I
for
would
all of
assume
it.
from the way they wrote it, I'm
Yeah.
guessing here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but they've just got a lot going on their mind. And then to be intentional with all of this,
Yeah.
or intentional in the moment and be present in the moment and not have their mind like all over the place. How do they get there?
Yeah. I love that question. I think one thing that I hear couples say that they like to do is just go back to the very beginning of your relationship. Really just give it even 20 seconds of your thought about, oh, what did I fall in love with about this man or this woman? And and maybe you listen to the songs that turned you on when you were together, or the music, or the maybe just letting yourself be, and again, intentional about switching off what's happening out here, right? And just being in the present with what attracted me to this person in the first place. Why do I love him? What is it about him that I can't live without? What is about her that I cannot live without? Just cueing in and allowing yourself to disconnect from what's going on. Again, being intentional.